Hello, 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 and welcome to the Drag Race recap here on Reality TV RHAPups. I'm your host, Liana Boraas, and today we're going to talk about episode 8 of RuPaul's Drag Race season 16. We're going to get into all of the snatches, the reading challenge, and of course, the runway. First, let me welcome in our wonderful panel who's here to help me break everything down. He just celebrated his birthday, so come on, birthday boy. Hey, Aman Adwin.
Hey, yes, I just turned the big 3-0. Really excited about it. Even though I have like a small case of like Peter Pan syndrome, I've always like really been super excited for my 30s. So like I'm ready. I'm here and I'm queer as always, and I'm here to talk about Drag Race. I'm so glad that our guest is here with us today. Missing Beth, but we're gonna go through it.
Yes, I'm so happy you brought that up. So Beth is not, she's just feeling a little bit under the weather, but we have secured a guest for you today. He is no stranger to anything RHAP and not even a stranger to the Drag Race recap. It's Mike Bloom.
I'm Beth's cousin, right? I'm just coming, hey! Over here from the Pork and Beans Borough in Brooklyn.
Yeah, we want you to not be yourself. We want you to be someone else. So if you can do that.
To be fair, I have been approached a lot, asked like, are you just a character? Are you really that way? In which case, yes, I am. I was also waiting if I should come in doing like my own Chad Michaels Cher impression, because I do feel like the Chad Michaels of the recap, considering I began it all the way back in 2016. And it's beautiful to see the legacy you all have carried on 8 years later.
Okay, don't say that. That's weird to hear that.
You're old.
I can't believe it's been that long. Aman just celebrated his 30th. I'm turning 33. Like, oh my God, what are we doing, people? But don't worry, old as we may be, we are fresh and hot and young with our takes. Does that work? And
I'm glad you started with fresh.
Yeah, you know, spicy. So we're going to get into everything from this episode. But first, Mike, how have you been liking the season so far?
It's so just like to sort of undress things, I suppose, untuck things, as it were. So for people who don't know, I was very honored to start coverage of RuPaul's Drag Race back in the summer of 2016. I began coverage of RuPaul's Drag Race All Stars 2, and I covered through season 11, which was at this point 5 years ago. I never stopped watching the show, though. I dipped in from time to time on international seasons. Like I watched the first couple of Canada, I watched the first couple of UK, but I'll always watch the US. And then like, depending on my interest or what I'm doing elsewhere in my life, like I might dip in and out of even All-Stars seasons. So I have been watching along, if I haven't been actively talking about it. That being said, I don't know if it's just like the perfect confluence of factors of the time that it premiered. I'm saying as like we're about to get into the Survivor season, so maybe you call me at a right time to talk about this, or if it's just like this really fun, talented group of queens that for the first time doesn't necessarily feel like it's going to be one rabbit on the Greyhound track and everyone else kind of following. It does feel like an authentic horse race. This has been so much fun. It's been a really fun season. A lot of queens have brought some very refreshing elements back to Drag Race, honestly, in a way that I don't know if we feasibly thought could happen in the day and age of social media full of stupid, toxic fans that kind of chase out any sense of conflict from this show. I'm glad that it's come back in droves. The talent level is just absolutely, I would say, spectacular, but maybe we'll get into this episode. But look, everyone's going to have their rare challenges where things are not necessarily up to snuff. It just so happened for the majority of the cast, it was this particular episode. But I am somebody who, as a person that's not incredibly affiliated with the drag community, like I watch this as a reality show first and foremost, and I have just been loving what we've been getting so far, from the heart-crushing early defeats of people like Mirage and the mandatory meeting to watching like Maya Mon LePage go from the bottom two twice to now a top placement. Like everything feels so topsy-turvy in season 16 in a way that didn't feel that way in like even seasons 13 and 14, where a lot of whack-ass shit was happening. I've been just having so much fun. Even in what I would consider the worst episode of the season so far, it still has these incredibly captivating moments to it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad we brought you on for the worst episode of the season so far. And you're still happy about it, which is great
Yeah.
news for us. But Aman, I think Mike brings up something that's part of the conversation we've been having, which is, we had talked about like Nymphia, this front runner, Sapphira, this
Mhm.
front runner, these people who we
Mhm.
thought were, oh, this is going to be a two horse race.
Two racehorse.
Yeah, as they say, as the sports say.
Yep. 2 races, then off to the glue factory for you, Sparkles.
And yet we've seen Sparkles falter here, right? Like we see her struggle, and by Sparkles I mean Nymphia, I guess in this case, who's not going to the glue factory just yet.
The horse would be named Banana if Nymphia was a horse owner, right?
Of course, had to be. So fine. So Banana really struggles in this episode, and I think that this is the first time, especially Nymphia, we've seen her struggle because Sapphira has, had a little bit the second guessing with the potion and all of that, but for Nymphia, this really feels like a bit of a. Is this the one chink in her armor that then she can still go on to win, or do we feel like it's really anybody's game?
I was pleased. I mean, well, not pleased that she was faltering, but pleased to see exactly what Mike was talking about, in that it does feel very topsy-turvy, especially coming off of last season where we kind of we knew what was
Sasha
going to
Colby
happen.
meet and greet, baby.
Exactly.
We knew what was going to happen, and so I'm pleased that at the very least it seems like production and the casting team really were like, you know what, like we need for this next season, we have to make things a little bit more even. And yes, there are still front runners. Yes, there are still people out there that were like, you're probably going to be in the top 4, but we are seeing several chinks in the armor. We see Q's chink. We're now seeing Nymphia's chink. We've seen Sapphira's chink. So I feel like even if you do feel like a strong queen, there's still a lot of like story to be told for your journey towards the end. And at the same time, it's not even guaranteed that you might be in the end. So like, because like I was shocked that Maya was like towards the top this week. I was like, oh well, she's been in the bottom twice, she did lip sync twice. Like this is, we know the story, we know how this movie ends, but then she was towards the top. So it's like, okay, so the judges seem to really be, really going for it and giving people their just due when it's their just due. So I'm excited. I feel really, really good. I'm hoping for Nymphia to do better next week. And I don't know. I don't remember if it was you or Beth that said it the last time when I was talking about her. And I was like, look, I just don't see how she doesn't get to the end. Like I don't see it. Like she just feels like she's going to win. And either one of you was like, well, yeah, maybe the Snatch Game or the acting might F her up. And it effed her up. So
I don't know. I mean, you talk about all of these flawed queens in terms of performance. Ironically enough, I think the new frontrunner is the one whose flaws don't exist in their drag race performance, but in their personality. If Plain Jane wins this season, right now she has like the winner's equity for me. I do see your point about Nymphia and this odd ass thing that Rue brings up on the runway of like, you need to open up and show us who you are. The thing that is both fun and frustrating about RuPaul's Drag Race is that it is, in my opinion, the competition show on the air that is by far the most produced. Like, it is abundantly clear the majority of the time who they want there at the end and how they might tweak things, perhaps including this week, to keep said people around for certain moments. And so, I think that Nymphia could be sketched out to sort of have that moment that they were trying to foist onto Pearl for so long in season 7 to her chagrin of like, and this is how you crawl out of your cocoon and truly blossom as the banana butterfly that you are. So there could certainly be that growth, and now we're putting in this like midpoint stumbling block that's almost like a better version of what happened to Evie and Brooklyn Heights back in season 11. She nearly got there. She nearly hit that bottom too. So
I think what makes me feel more optimistic for her chances is the fact that they did not put her in the bottom. They were not willing to risk the potential of having her go home, which to me shows how invested the show is in her and her growth and her arc. So I think definitely still pencil her in for top 4. I love Mike bringing up Plain Jane because I think Plain Jane, I think Q, I think Plasma, I think some of these other queens that we may have discounted a little bit from the beginning, or like, oh yeah, they're going to be good, but are they going to be like top tier, are still kind of clawing their way up there. You know, not like
Mhm.
Plasma did amazing this week, or Q for that matter. I mean, Q did well with Amelia Earhart, but they're still in the race. And that is what makes it very exciting. So the fact that we're sort of shuffling a little bit almost week by week, with now this week seeming Plain being the front runner, is really exciting, and definitely makes the end a little bit more questionable, especially if it's some kind of live finale where that's not the decision made like an All-Stars in the moment. We're going to wait and sort of see what the people are saying, if that even factors in. But that makes it, I think, a little bit more unclear who's going to ultimately take on the crown.
How do you feel about Plain Jane, Mike?
So it's complicated. I will say I love her. Because here's the thing, initially I did not, especially coming in, it really felt like this kind of canned produced element of like, well, I'm just going to come in and I'm going to be the mean girl. But I will give her so much kudos that honestly, I wish I could give someone like Dawn, which is like, she backs her shit up. You know, like if you are going to be that mean to people, you certainly need to be kind of talking down to them from on high. And to be candid, I think like the weakest she was maybe that first challenge she won with the garment I think she made in the first design challenge was not very good. And I think that's when a lot of people were understandably like, you can't really punch down on people when you're barely their height, if not below. But she is incredibly impressive. And she can like nearly do it all. What I do take umbrage with is, and something that she sort of acknowledges as well, and whether this is a cultural difference from growing up in a Russian family, certainly dealing with that with like a character on Australian Survivor this season, whether it's just like the way that she as a perfectionist views other people. Something she does like in Untucked, for example, I am someone much like Plasma that comes from the theater scene, and what Plain Jane does, which is like her sitting down after everyone comes back and is like talking about the Nymphia, revelation of you have to open up more. And she's like, yeah, you see, you all that were safe this week. I feel like that was the issue, was that you didn't open up enough. I could not tell you how aggravating it would be for me when like you're in a production of something and you're not getting notes from the director or the choreographer. Another actor is approaching you and being like, I think in this scene, actually, you should try
Never
this.
give fellow actors notes. Never do that.
And so that's what Plain Jane is doing. And so it's this interesting thing where the further the season goes on, the more I don't think the personality was necessarily that put on. At the same time, I think the way that she regards others has either this like intentional or unintentional kind of like holier than thou status about it. But as a reality TV character, that makes me kind of love her more because, like, let's just say it, she really has been the talking point from a social media perspective of these first 6 or 7 weeks.
So I will say I'm starting to turn around. Look, I am all about love and kindness in this world. I really try to exude that every day of my life. And, I'm here for the shade. I'm here for a little cat fight every now and then. Y'all, I love Big Brother fights, okay?
Yeah.
But when in the beginning of it, I was really just like, ugh. It felt like you just said, it feels so put on. It's like, girl, this is not you. And then like to watch a couple of the Roscoe's viewing party and people talking about her, other queens talking about, I think Plasma was just on the latest one, or the one before rather, and she was just like, everyone was asking her like, oh, is Plain Jane like actually like that? Like, is that how she is? And she refused to respond, and she kind of just gave you this answer of like, oh, well, let's just say that she knows how to make good TV. And so that even gave me more confirmations like, oh, so you're literally just doing it because you want the airtime, you want to stay on camera, you want to be a talking point of the season, which takes me out of it. But when I saw her perform in this Snatch Game, I was like, okay, there is some bite with the bark. So I'm like, okay, I'll buy a ticket maybe for this plane, but I'm going to have my finger on the eject button at any given moment.
Oh, no. Is this a Boeing? Is the door easily openable?
Oh, no. We're flying Delta today, boys. That's so interesting. I think it's funny to definitely watch her arc, because I similarly had a bit of a negative reaction to her, but not because of that she was mean, but mainly just because I didn't like the stupid being put on. That was what I took the biggest issue with. So now that she's sort of like I've been able to see more from her, and I feel like that's less of her persona, like just trying to put on like, oh, I'm so dumb. Like I'm happy that we're kind of moving away from that, and especially in Snatch Game, for her to come across so smart, like it just felt like everything was so smart and so well done. And I come from professionally a world of academia where critiques are harsh and that's the way it goes. So I actually don't mind the way. I can understand why people wouldn't appreciate her communication style. To me personally, it doesn't bother me. And I think that's why also when Sapphira was like in Untucked this week, yeah, I like playing. I don't have a problem like with the way that inherently with the way that she communicates. And I was like, okay, so I think there's more sides to her, and it's nice to now have a bit of a more robust discussion about playing than just like, you're a meanie and we don't like you.
Right.
Now we can sort of think about all the different angles and everything that she's bringing to the show and how that's benefiting either her, drag, or Drag Race in its totality.
Yeah, I think it helps that we start getting a lot of these personal segments about like the life that she had, whether it was ballroom dancing for a while and then kind of quitting it because she was told that it was too gay, to the relationship with her family. Like you get more of a picture. This happens with any reality show where, especially ones that are unlike Big Brother, sort of like edited ahead of time. Is like we get this two-dimensional first impression of them. And then hopefully as we get to know them more, we're like, okay, I can understand what's happening in that braid. And so, yeah, Plain Jane made a big impression between the snarky, bordering on mean comments and then like, oh, but I'm the stupid Jimbo Burger Finger with a Katya-like accent. And so, honestly, the more I've gotten to know her, the more I have liked her. And I think also the more, again, not like refreshing because we just had the gruesome twosome of Mistress and Lux last season, but I think walking in there and like not necessarily walking any of it back as well. She did a video a couple weeks ago with Mistress that I watched and really enjoyed because maybe
how was that? I meant to watch that.
It was so funny. It was very, very funny. Billie Jade maybe has the line of the entire video when she goes, Lucy LaDuca is, I'm pretty sure, a Republican, and then just moves on with it. Like it's an unstoppable force being an immovable object of just entire snarkiness. So I've been personally loving her as a reality TV character. Again, I'm not all for necessarily like consistently venomous arguments at each other all the time, like perhaps a season 4. At the same time, we were dealing with RuPaul's Best Friends race for a while. And so perhaps it's like the new era of Survivor, right? We had that era, our miscongeniality era, where everyone was very nice to each other, considerate. Fans still went after them because fans are still going to do that. And now we have some people coming in with the confidence and the wherewithal to be like, I can be a little to very shady about these people. And let's also mention it's not all Plain Jane. Again, Dawn is absolutely punching up. And even Q, who is now 2 for 2 on like them deciding to really throw her under the bus by saying some really shady stuff.
It is funny with Dawn and Q because they're so not overshadowed in the sense of like performance, well maybe, but overshadowed in the sense of shadiness just because Plain Jane is so consistently shady. But Dawn, I don't know, it's those little elf ears. Oh, it's just Dawn. She's mean. She can be mean.
She be in that DR talking.
Yes.
Okay.
It makes sense.
Caught strays this week, so like no one's safe.
Yeah, it makes sense actually why I think she's such a big fan of America Lopez. Is I feel like America sort of has that same vibe of just like loves to talk shit, and we love them for it. At the same time, again, it's a little tougher with Dawn because now I'm sort of like in those primordial Plain Jane stages of like. To be honest, again, I am rooting for her. I love that sort of weird aesthetic. And obviously, again, if she's a fan of other reality shows, we stan that synergy. But at the same time, like, even the time she was in the top, I wasn't that impressed by her. I think with the departure of Zunami Muse, I think the Miss Safe is going to be handed over the sash or the Shaw to Dawn over here.
Not Miss Safe.
Yeah. Well, Maya already had her growth arc, so she can be back in the bottom now.
That was that one.
No, Maya's going to go out on Lollapalooza like all the other lip sync people.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. Okay, fantastic. I'm loving this already, but let's get into the details of the Snatch, the Majora, the Menorah, and everything in between. So,
Menorah.
Labia, Menorah, Majora, it's fine. All right, so Snatch Game. No celebrities this time. We did get JP and Leith two of the pit crew members loving the little heart cutouts for the packages.
Normally
Scan
I
that.
don't be thirsting over pit crew because I just find that it's like they want you to thirst over them, so I like subconsciously I do not. But those men, oh my god.
Yeah, it was doing it for you.
Yeah,
Which
Leith,
one?
Leith is a good
It-
Leith, I think.
Leith.
Both
Leith
of them.
was. Yeah.
Both of them. Just woo! Okay, sorry, I just had to get that out.
So then did it make up for the fact that like you don't even bring in Carson and Michelle on the panel? I mean, clearly like these guys were also probably being fed answers for this. Like I do not want to besmirch their
Probably.
IQs whatsoever,
dare
but
you.
I don't know if either one of them are so quick to be like, yes, you will be the one to come up with these reflexive responses to these
Are you
questions.
saying that pit crew members can't be intelligent, Mike?
Well,
that they don't have degrees? Okay.
Listen, I've been watching Asaf on the challenge. I think he proves the point.
Oh. Okay, well, whether or not they were fed lines or organic JP originals, so we're going to focus on the queens here. And I think that's why I also don't mind them not being celebrities, because look, I want to talk about the queens. And where do we begin? Do we begin with the tops, the bottoms? Do we go in order? Mike, who's the first person that comes to your mind that you want to talk about when it comes to the Snatch?
So let's start with the good, because I would say overall, this was not a very good Snatch game.
Yeah.
I mean, I would put this, it's not nearly as disastrous as obviously season 14 was. I don't think it's that far from it, to the point where I would say the top two performances were like definitely good, but I feel like we're not walking out of it with, again, that sort of legendary-esque feeling that it seems like we
Right.
get almost every season of like, okay, well, even if the rest of them are shitty, these
Mhm.
ones are really good. Or even like a season 13 where it's like, yes, Gomic's incredible as Paris Hilton, but like Utica as Squirrelhead Bob Ross is iconic. Even like the bad stuff wasn't so explicitly terrible to make it iconic either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I felt like the way.
Yeah, or as Liana's indicating, the Miley Cyrus sledgehammer to the head. Hook,
Yeah.
That was so crazy. I feel like, especially in the way that it was edited, there was never, because like I feel like whenever you do have the good Snatch games, there's always like an extended period of time that you spend on each queen. But this time around, it was like every queen gave like one answer, and then move on to the next queen, move on to the next zinger, move on to the next zinger, move on to the next zinger, because the zingers were so far and few between. So it really did feel like there really wasn't a lot of like really, really good performances here. Just a lot of like really, really serviceable performances here. So definitely not going to walk away from this Snatch game remembering too much. I mean, I'm having trouble remembering now who some of them were. So yeah, just it was okay. It was okay.
I would say like 67 to 75% of them were like passing to not good, and then there was like the tops were very clear in this moment. It wasn't like very much picking between this massive crop, which again is odd considering that I do think for the vast majority of the season, especially compared to last week, where just everybody, in my opinion, killed it to the point where I thought it should have been like a Daytona win style top two instead of an elimination. You know, it was a little tough to come by, but also at the same time, this is a tall order of a challenge. I think we talked about in the early days back when I was on the podcast of like, maybe Snatch Game's a bit overhyped in terms of once you actually go through watching it, you're like, this isn't as fun as maybe we make it out to be. And we kind of parse through the good through actually the 15-minute experience of watching it in real time.
Honestly, it's like the yearly reminder that, oh yeah, I overhype Snatch Game like every single time, like, yeah, Snatch Game. And then, there are, of course, iconic performances that have come out of it. But when you add up the sum of every single piece, it's fine. Like, it's fine. I think there's a reason why so many queens are nervous about it, and that, oh, this is the one challenge that they're the most nervous for, or they feel they need to over prepare for, because it is so iconic in the history of Drag Race, but the individual performances maybe aren't always necessarily top tier. And I would say even for this Snatch Game with the top performances, I do think that Plain Jane did really well. I think Sapphira did really well, But Sapphira was also being herself a little bit, I think, with the James Brown flavor. And so, especially the comment about the shoes, right? That's all inside jokes about Sapphira. So even then, I'm not thinking of the one-liners like, we originated the language, those little one-liners. I think the one-liner that really stuck with me was weaponizing her Slavic upbringing, just because of the inside reference of like weaponizing her BFA and things like that within the drag community or within Drag Race specifically. So that one line made me laugh. But yeah, other than that, it was a bit of a bag of meh, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. I did love Sapphira also perking her pecs after the people in
Kira Cedric loved that one. The Untucked exclusive, right? About like, oh, you really represented how muscular James Brown was, which was like, I'm pretty sure that man was on like a truckload of cocaine back in his heyday. I don't know how svelte he was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's all so interesting. I mean, I think the choices of the people also, we had some weird choices in terms of Jane Goodall, which we had so there was another queen in UK season that did David Attenborough.
Yes.
And that one also
I think it was Something Wong, right?
Yes, and that did not translate either very well. The Gold Tooth Fairy was interesting from Zunami because during the walkthrough, which Chad Michaels, by the way, looked stunning. So happy Chad was there. Was not the person I was expecting. So that was a very, very pleasant surprise.
Out of the blue, and she looks like a goddess on earth. I was like, what the fuck is going on here?
I'm really glad they unfroze Chad Michaels to be like Walt Disney, right? To be like, come back alive for your one appearance. She's great. And I think it's also a nice throwback again to like season 4. It was still in that kind of Nation Lopez era of a Snatch Game where she just came through and absolutely killed it. I love that we got the clip of like the chicken shit games, I think is how she referred to it. So, and that was to me like one of the first times when I was watching season 4 where I was like, okay, now I understand Chad Michaels. So I love that she did come through and also had that kind of expertise in a manner of speaking to talk about it. And that she also gave like legitimate criticism as well and was so upfront as to tell people like Nymphia, like, well, good luck. I don't think you could do it.
It's so awkward. But also, I mean, they're giving them feedback for a reason. So the fact that like Maya took the feedback and ran with it. Zunami almost got screwed over because got positive feedback and then completely bombed. But oh my God. And I love Zunami to death, but Jesus Christ, girl. When she started talking, it was just like, oh no.
I loved it. I loved it so much. Maybe I'll disagree with myself that like there was nothing iconically bad about this. I am obsessed with the mythos of this Gold Tooth Fairy where she is just yes-anding everything. Where it's like, okay, I'm digging for, I'm not just digging for teeth, I'm digging for something more. What more are you digging for? Bones?
Bones. Yeah, bones. But like not even gold bones. She didn't even say gold bones. She was just like, yeah, bones. Like,
she digs for both other stuff. I also love later on when, I will also say, honestly, you know who should have won Snatch Game this week? RuPaul. RuPaul was so good at responding to these queens. It was like Lonnie Love with Utica's roast, where like RuPaul working with Nymphia was arguably the highlight of it. But her Ru listening to Gold Tooth Fairies like extended monologue and being like, "Wait, so you keep your dollar bills with the teeth?" And Tsunabe's like, "Yup." And so this character's becoming increasingly unhinged just by throwing out random things about them.
I'd second that. I feel like every time I'm watching a Snatch Game, Ru is always so good with like giving layups for obvious witty responses, and then even when the witty response does not happen on the queen's part, he will still like follow that up with something else that is like, okay, we're gonna go away from that joke and move into the next one. So like he's always been really good at that, and like oh my God. I got so much anxiety just watching Zunami because it was just, I could see her brain working. That's like one of Michelle Visage's favorite critiques. I can see you thinking. I saw her thinking the whole time, and I was just like, oh, yeah. I feel you, girl. I feel you, because I say it every time we talk about Snatch Game. Improv is not my cup of tea. It's just not. I can't do it. I don't know what it is. I freeze. And so when I see other queens freezing, I'm just like, oh. So I really, really felt for her. It just, I think it's always smart to go for a character that doesn't have like a pre-established background, so you can kind of make it whatever you want. You know, it's like when what's her face did Sophia the Robot. You know, you kind of
Gigi Good.
you can go wherever you want to go, but you have to have a clear cut and concise character to stay in. And I just feel like there was nothing there other than I'm looking for gold teeth. Like that's it. And I just felt
It's just, I don't know. It's really tough for me that Zunami made this choice to be like, okay, I'm going to be this completely new character. Because it's not like what Anitra did last season, right? Where Drew was like, you could do Gordon Ramsay, but what if you did the girl Gordon Ramsay? Or I think like Kim Chi did that with Kim Jong-un back in season 8. Zunami is like, I want to do a completely new character because Trinity did it and Evie Oddly did it. But you need to remember, like, Trinity and Evie did it on an all-winner season when Trinity has done it 3 times. Evie has done it twice. Like, it would be like a first-time player coming onto a Survivor season and being like, well, I'm just going to do what Boston Rob did. And it's like, it doesn't exactly line up there. You got to get the treads a little bit on the tires before you really shoot for something like that. And so I think Zunami was the failure that just came from, like, honestly, poor concept and execution to me, because the boogeyman, like, you looked, even though Evie had that benefit from experience, like, you looked at Evie and you knew what Evie was going for. It was the concept of the boogeyman, but like a 70s boogeyman. Here it was just the gold tooth fairy. Like, okay, are you getting gold? Are you gold? What's with the bones?
Yeah, what's with the bones? I mean, teeth are just outside bones. So like there's some kind of through line to that. And I actually didn't hate the tooth fairy as a concept. Like, if you think about the tooth fairy, that's like really weird. That's really weird. There's this crazy fairy who's hoarding teeth from children. That's so weird.
And paying the children for it.
Yes, like I'm paying the children for their teeth. Like I feel like there is a way to do this. And the gold tooth fairy is like, okay, just have a concept, like have a vision. The gold tooth fairy is like the tooth fairy, but they only take gold teeth or something like that. I guess. I feel like a regular tooth fairy probably would have been better at this point. But I think the idea of also, if you're not good at Snatch Game or not good at improv, to have lines ready that you can throw out. Okay. So it just felt like Zunami did absolutely zero prep when it came to conceptualizing this character, and was just like, yeah, we're gonna fairy wing it, because it was just nothing.
Well, I think though, if you want a great example of what Aman is talking about, look at who won this challenge in the form of Plain Jane, who's able to benefit from, again, like, nobody knows who this woman is, really. I know that Lady Gaga had something to do with her. She's referred to, I think, as like the Madonna of the Balkans. But Plain Jane was essentially, as they talk about, like, and we'll talk about this with a few of the queens, like, okay, are you just doing the same character? Are you just playing yourself? Like, she was able to basically do that, but kind of get away with it, because it's not like someone's fact-checking you at every turn. I think when you have people like Zunami and you have people like Morphine that try to hang their hats on a concept or an accent, sometimes it can work, but I feel like the vast majority of the time, that concept's going to run thin incredibly quickly once you realize, like, oh, I have nothing else.
Yeah, I agree. I think Plain really, I mean, yeah, it was, you know, the age-old story of these people that come into Snatch Game with people that we don't necessarily know. It's like Little Edie all over again. You know, we don't know a lot about this character, but you're giving us just enough to understand your jokes, even if we don't know where the jokes are coming from. So it was, I thought she did just really, really well. And I was just like, okay, all right, I'll get on this plane. I'll get on it.
Plain was Yelena Carlucia. I hope I pronounced that right. So I did look her up on Instagram and watch some of her music videos, and it is like, it does feel very Gaga with the costuming, especially. And so I can understand why Gaga took inspiration.
Wow, who would have thought actually doing a Lady Gaga character on Snatch Game would
somehow work? I know. I mean, she's got like 2.4 million followers on Instagram. Like, she is clearly very established. But for us, the ignorant American audience, like, it ended up working really well, because even Kira Sedgwick was like, that's a real person. Like, okay, so it worked kind of in both ways. If you knew, I gotta feel like fine.
It's like a bit of a cheat, because it's like you're gonna choose somebody that's very, very obscure that we don't know, but then we're afraid of like
Yep.
upsetting the
Yeah.
fans and that person. So we're just gonna be like, that was so good.
Yeah, great job. And I think Plain also had more of the memorable one-liners. So the one I
Yes.
brought up about weaponizing her Slavic upbringing, Michelle donated me her breast implants. Thank you for being a comrade. Like those lines were all like, okay, this is the line, not just the general attitude and energy of the character that I remember and thought was well done from Snatch.
The thing that did it for me was when she reaches back to Nymphia and is like, "Oh, this reminds me of my deceased babushka." And Rouge says, "Did you say deceased or diseased?" And she says both.
Both.
That's yes and to a T. Like that is that distilled into a moment. That's how you play. I still think it's tough. Like I was impressed by what Plain Jane did, but I was more entertained by Sapphira, to be completely honest. And it's tough because, like, to your point, Liana, Sapphira, I would not say was like completely doing the James Brown. To be candid, it was no Kennedy Davenport as Little Richard. And I do feel like those are kind of two sides of the same coin. Yeah, though, of kind of like these bigger showmen of like the over the top, always flop sweat covered, performers of the stage. And so I think Sapphira really got into it at the end. When she does the costume change, that was the James Brown I really wanted by the end of it.
Yes.
It's like, for me, it's Eddie Murphy doing the James Brown hot tub sketch from SNL. Like, that's the point that I thought we would verge on. But I still enjoyed the first part. I did love her talking about, James Brown penning his first song, "Get Me the F Out of Here." Like, there were some good stuff there. I think Plain was better, on her feet with the back and forth. But I think Sapphira, perhaps due to the character, was able to hit some more of those highs and big energy spikes, and also did get that great back and forth moment of just calling out like, I'm just going to wear the same shoes in every challenge. I'm sorry. Do you realize the budget I'm working with, people?
I know. She spent all her money on pumpkins and flowers.
I think it's always such a smart choice to do someone that is of RuPaul's time as well. Like he always is going to respond first to those characters that are like from the Motown era or the shares of it all. Like that is like just where he is. I thought that was like a really strategic choice for him to go with as well, and he pulled it off pretty well. So I think it was a good choice.
Yeah, I do agree with the costume change. Really feel like that solidified it in my mind, because that was more of the outfit that I was like envisioning. And so the fact that you had the outfit change, just the overall energy of the performance just was really fun. And I mean, I've said it, I've been such a big Sapphira fan from the beginning. And so it was nice to see her be able to excel in the Snatch Game.
I still cannot believe that I met her. I don't know if you
Oh,
listened to the podcast, Mike.
No, I'd heard it in the first couple stages, right? Because she's a Philly queen.
Yes, it
Not
was
a filler queen.
It was so crazy. Like we literally were just talking about her in the bar, and then she just pops up. Like it was crazy. But
and I feel like it's so interesting though, because as much as we were talking about like, okay, there's no Sasha Colby huge front runner, I feel like Sapphira contains that vibe to her of just like almost not like, I wouldn't say a regal aspect, but again, I think this sort of sense of maturity. I mean, she's referred to a number of times as like the mother of the season, even though I'm pretty sure she's like, let me look this up for a second. Yeah, she's 30...
like, don't look. She's like 32 or something.
She's 34 years old, which is the same age as Zunami. I'm older than Sapphira Crystal at this point. So it's so interesting that age is just a number. But I do think in a very messy season from like an interpersonal perspective, it still is interesting to sort of have that kind of Latrice Royale perspective embodied too, of like, not above it all, but kind of that voice of sanity to come in and be like, all right, everybody, can we just calm down for a second?
Yeah, and I feel like... Go ahead, Liana. Sorry.
Well, I was gonna say, I think that's also the reason why she's not bothered by Plain, because she's just like, whatever.
Yeah, I feel like and it's interesting because I feel like we don't always see her mothering, but we always get DRs about how she is mothering. Or if you're watching like a Roscoe's viewing party, the queens always say the exact same thing about her. So I think it's just so interesting. So I'm wondering like what her, because I feel it in my bones that she's going to be towards the top 4, which means she's going to start taking a larger part of the edit at some point, because I feel like some episodes she's a little bit understated or in the back. So I'm wondering like what the rest of her arc looks like when she does have this role, and can she win with this type of like mothering archetype? Because I don't from what I can tell, like I feel like a lot of the mothers of the season don't always necessarily win, with the exception of like Sasha Colby. So I'm really interested to see where this goes.
Well, she'll still be making outfits for people for the rest of the season. So maybe
Well,
that's
I
where
mean,
that goes.
That's Bianca is the person who pops to mind for me. Like someone who is just like,
yeah.
I'll help you make outfits because I'm not threatened by you. Like I'm
Yeah.
confident in myself, what I bring. I know who I am. I know what my drag is. And that's to me like almost more of the similarities. Although I think we are maybe seeing a little bit more second guessing, particularly surrounding the immunity potion from Sapphira. Otherwise, I would really have never known that she was second guessing herself in that challenge. Which since we're on the subject of Plain and Sapphira, let's talk about the immunity potion, because there are 3 more weeks left on Jane's immunity potion. And our celebrity here, Mike Bloom, had tweeted something out a few weeks ago.
I'm no Brian Cohen, please.
Oh, okay. All right, sir. Our sub-celebrity here had tweeted something about when we found out that the queen who used the immunity potion gets 0 critiques, right? Like
Yes.
they don't even, they're not, whoop, you took it? Okay, you're gone. So Mike Bloom tweeted, so the hashtag drag race potion works less like a hashtag survival idol and more like safety without power. The person who drinks it leaves before any feedback and is automatically safe. So what if you used it offensively rather than defensively? And I think this is especially important in the context of this week's challenge. So Mike, you said if Plain Jane feels she's second behind Q, maybe in this week's Sapphira in the challenge, should she use the potion on the person who would win, theoretically, Sapphira, forcing her to be safe without critiques, and Jane would go on to win. So I love this idea of thinking about the immunity potion from that perspective, that strategic perspective. I think if anyone would do it, it would be Plain. But unfortunately, we don't see her use it here. But now that we only have 2 weeks left for her to use it, could she potentially use it offensively?
Yeah, it's been a wild few weeks when it comes to my relationship with Drag Race, considering that I also got told this week that this very tweet was read out on Race Chasers with Alaska and Willem.
Oh, shit.
Yep. That's why I said our celebrity.
Oh my gosh, I need to listen.
Which is very wild to me. I'm glad that it was referred to by a listener. I'm glad we sort of had that buffer, because I don't know if they really be like, okay, this straight guy came in with this super strategic take of how to use the immunity potion. I don't know if it'll be used that way. If anything, I think it's going to be used where there's going to be a bottom 3 and Plain Jane's going to use it to save either a front runner to see like, see sister, I'm in my congenial era, I'm using it to save you, / maybe a Nymphia, like I want to fuck you, or more so like, hey, I want to put this front runner in the bottom 2, maybe save someone like a Maya, sort of keep the fodder along and possibly send a front runner home. But I would love this idea so much. I don't know if the show would, is the thing. We've talked about this a lot with All Stars back in the OG days when they had the dual lipsticks of like, strategy doesn't really mix with these types of competition shows where a lot is judged based on merit and less so like, if you have the numbers and what are you doing. It would be an amazing TV moment, especially I think when I first tweeted it back during, I think it might have been the challenge that the Q did actually win, the doll challenge, but like, imagine if Plain Jade had used it then, when Q just came out of the bottom 2, was about to get a win for the first time, and Plain Jade's like, sorry, no critiques for you, do not pass go. I mean, Q might have just like stormed off the set right there, and then I think it's an incredible concept that honestly, I think the producers kind of like backed ass backwards into. I don't think they would have intended for someone to use it. No, that's like the best case scenario in terms of entertainment. If they bring this back for next season, I need to see it happen, because, and there's also been some people admittedly spoiling the fun by being like, I think the potion has to be taken voluntarily. So I think like if you offer the potion to Q, she could say no, but I hope that's not the case. This is the one case where I think consent doesn't matter for the sake of good TV.
No, I feel like consent should not matter in this particular instance.
Okay, yeah, please clarify.
There we go. All right, out of context.
It
would just be an absolutely,
because it's whoever has it, it's theirs to use. Like it's you're if you're giving it to someone else, then it's given. Like so I feel like it should not matter. I never even thought about it being used that way, but after you've already said that, like I do feel like at this point, now that especially it's out there in the ether and it's being read on Race Chasers, if they bring this back, some queen will have seen this tweet, or have heard about this concept, and I do think that it.
Well,
I do think I can see it happening now.
It's interesting though, like how do you think the judges would feel about that? Because something that I certainly got pushback about when I first posted it is like people thought, okay, well, it would be good in the short-term game because you get a win, but like, would you lose luster in the eyes of the judges for trying to eliminate your competition? Do you think that would matter in the grand scheme of things, or is this like RuPaul, the producer, saying good TV is good TV?
I think I'm kind of like of two minds about it. I feel like your initial instinct about them not loving it is probably correct. I feel like they probably would not have thought about it that way. I don't think that they were thinking, oh, someone could definitely use this in an offensive way. And if it were to happen, I think that we would have seen some production shenanigans, and eventually somebody would have broken the NDA and been like, yeah, I tried to use it on this bitch, but they wouldn't let me. But now that it's like the concept is potentially out there, I do think that, yeah, like that could be good TV. So like, why not let that happen? So, I mean, they already have like the whole thing with All Stars, right? Where people try to do things offensively. So I wouldn't mind it being in a main stage season or so. Like, I think right now they'd be like, no, but I think in the future they could definitely see the potential for a lot of good TV for that. So
I genuinely think they didn't even think it through, like that
Nope.
that would be a potential option. And I think that that's then what makes it fun, because, with Plain Jane being the one queen to sabotage the circle rankings at the very beginning of the season, like she would be the one to potentially figure it out and to use it this way. My gut is telling me that she's going to save it and only really use it on herself if she feels absolutely necessary. The question then becomes 2 weeks from now, let's say she feels like she doesn't need to use it, she hasn't used it, what's she going to do with that? And how does she use that as a bargaining chip? And also, how does that benefit her? Because this isn't like All Stars where you can say, look, I'll save you this week, you save me next week. That's it. That's the last immunity potion that we know of. So it's not like there's the potential for another one to be in play where, oh, I'm going to give it to Nymphia. Nymphia, you need to have my back. There's no bartering there because it's just one and done.
I think I agree with Mike in that I think she probably will use it, but not for herself, and it'll be like a whole like, look at Plain Jane being so kind, and I think it will be for someone that is a front runner that has like another messed up week. It'll probably be in 2 weeks on the very last time that she can use it. So I think, barring the fact that she's in the bottom, which I don't really see happening right now because she's always been like towards the top, I think she'll probably end up using it on another queen. I can see that in the future.
All right, let's get back to the Snatch Game to finish talking through the rest of the queens. We already talked about 2 of the top 2, so let's round things out with the third. We have Maya, who originally was going to do Tiffany Pollard, which I was like, oh no, because we've seen that flop. And when given the critique, hold on, I wrote it down. Ru literally suggests maybe be one of your loud friends. That was the feedback. It was like, don't be yourself. Be one of your loud friends.
But didn't you hear Aman LePage is like very outgoing, but also shy.
Yes, exactly. She's outgoing and shy. Yes. And so Maya runs with that and decides to switch to do Trina's cousin, Shaquita, I believe was the name. Yes, from the Pork and Beans project. And like she literally pulled this out of her ass.
Yeah, I mean, this is again sort of like a takeoff on, well, I'm not this person, but I'm related to this person. I know a little bit of Trina. Like, I'm trying to remember. I feel like she might have collaborated with Kelly Rowland at some point, but I didn't know. Like, again, I have no idea how accurate this is to like the Trina thing. I'll take the judges' words for it when they're like, "Oh yes, we all knew Trina when you made the reference to the thing that she does." She was the concept of just like a very fun character. There really wasn't anything that stand out about her. It was sort of like just a default third place. Though I honestly, I don't know. I maybe would have put Q in the top 3.
Yeah. I think that was the discussion, right? Like, was Q the other one who would have ended up in the top being Amelia Earhart? Although in Untucked, the queens discuss, are we getting the brick again? But I do think that Q had some lines that were okay, and I think it worked. It wasn't like amazing, outstanding, but in this particular crop, I think there's a way, Aman, that she could have weaseled her way into the last safe slot or top slot.
I agree. And as far as Maya's concerned, like, I mean, I'm not super duper familiar with Trina. I know enough of her to be like, okay, like that was there. Like I got a few of the references, but it did really feel like most of the time it felt like stock character. But I feel like I think the producers wanted her to have this moment of like, oh, you were in the bottom two twice and now you can be towards the top. So yeah, I probably would have put Q there as well, over her, but she was fine.
No, you have to keep up the streak as well of Q consistently getting critiques from the judges, which is again why the immunity potion would have been such a good use back then. And maybe that's also it as well that, I mean, Maya's been doing, for lack of a better term, so many flips through this, where she kind of had the first redemption of like, you haven't been really standing out that much. And then she is, in my opinion, like the star of that girl group challenge and wins. And then she ends up in the bottom two the next two times. And it's like, oh, look at you. You're really coming out of your shell. So I think anytime her personality was going to pop, it was going to warrant such big compliments from her. Just such an odd presence in Maya, where I think she was able to save herself by being mimetic a few times. Do you think she did her Cher impression in front of Chad Michaels?
Oh, that's what I was waiting for.
I mean, I feel like Ru had to have done it, right? Like, oh, you're gonna love this. She did a Cher impression a few weeks ago.
But I feel like that would have to make the edit, right? If that actually happened, how does that not make the edit?
Yeah.
Or maybe because they needed the redemption arc, they were like, well, we can't put anything negative in there about Maya. Well, let's talk about Dawn, because I think she was another queen who kind of got lucky being safe this week, because while she started off strong with picking up on Ru's The View reference, which, I mean, you know, that doesn't take a genius to do that, but that was great. Loved that. And then everything else just kind of completely fell apart. I was like, girl, what are you doing?
I loved the paint. I thought I got Meghan McCain down from the way that she painted her face. It was very, very stark in the cheeks. The eyes are piercing. It's Meghan McCain down. I am a avid The View watcher. I watch almost every morning. So I was waiting for more of like that. She played Meghan McCain in more so of like hey bitch, I'm here for all the gays way. And like, Meghan is kind of like that a lot of the time, but that is not her. That's not what you know her for. You know her for being the firebrand. You know her for being sort of just like vitriolic, even though she thinks that she's not being vitriolic. So I wanted more of that, and everything just like felt so. It was too kind. You were too kind for Meghan.
First and foremost, how does she go the entire Snatch Game and never say the words "my father"? I feel like I don't watch The View, but like that's the thing I know about Meghan McCain is that she consistently brought her father into it
every time.
Yeah, exactly. Time. The like lean into the Nepo babiness of it all. And it's funny because Dawn in the confessionals almost did a better job than Dawn in Snatch Game, because it was like, yeah, I'm excited to tear her apart. Like, she's this Nepo baby, like, you know, blah, 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 all these negative
and they had some of the drag queens come on the show at one point. I think it was Monet, and I think it was Monet and what is her name? Season 11, Nina. They came on the show and like gave her like a crown, like a crown to us, like an honorary, like, you know, Ru girl. And I wanted like that. Like, why wasn't that talked about? Like, I just feel like we missed it. Maybe she did and we just lost it to the edit, but it just wasn't enough for me.
No. I think if they were trying to justify her as safe, they would have included some good content.
Yeah. I think she for me was like very much fourth from the bottom, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Well, let's talk about the two other saves. We have Plasma and Morphine, and I'm literally looking at my notes I wrote for Plasma. I have nothing written down. I know she had Patti LuPone, obviously, but like, what did she do again?
She made very hyper specific theater references, which like passed for me, you know. I was a little bit long. She tells this whole story about like, I went audition for Into the Woods as Cinderella. Would you believe it if Stephen Sondheim told me I was too old? I think she did a fine job. She had that one-liner of "I'll drink to that," which was a little bit of a layup. You could tell she had that in the barrel. But you could tell, like, in Untucked, she says thank God to the camera because, like, she really thought she didn't do well there. And understandably so, because this is not as much of a gimme as Meghan McCain's dad. But what does everyone know Patti LuPone for? Stop taking pictures now! How do we not get a moment where she's like, is this being filmed? Why are we filming this? Stop filming me right now! Like, how do you not go completely aggro? That's what we know Patti LuPone for. Is this like another Barbara Streisand moment where she's like, well, she's such a goddess, I don't want to besmirch her too much? It just felt like, yet again, much like with Dawn, there was some stuff there more so with Plasma than with Dawn, but at the same time, it felt like there were some other missed opportunities.
Yeah, it just
Mhm.
it just felt like it was just a little too cerebral, like I mean, she's obviously super fan, theater geek, that's being down. And so she knows a lot, but it's like, sometimes like when people are trying to tell a joke and they sort of like lay the joke down too much before they get to the punchline, that's kind of like what everything sort of like felt like from her. So
Yeah.
definitely she thought about it, but it didn't work. Brevity is the wit. Wait, brevity is the soul of wit. There we go.
There we go. Well, Morphine was the other one who was safe. And so I was not familiar with this scandal of Anna Delvey. So that was like
Wow.
brand new news to me. Mike is a New Yorker, former New Yorker. How did she do here?
Well, so I knew Anna Delvey not necessarily from the stuff that she did in real life, but in the Netflix show that she
Hmm.
was a part of, or I should say that she was a part of, that she was dramatized for, Inventing Anna, which is not a very good show, but goes to show just like how ridiculous of a person she is in our capitalistic society. This is what I
Mhm.
said before about how initially, like the way Morphine pitches it in the workroom is her, initially greeting someone saying, "Oh, you look very poor." And like Rue gets a laugh out of that. It gets a laugh again in Snatch Game. And that's it. It works for a
Yeah.
Vine, maybe a 6-second moment of like, oh, that's a funny reference to Anna Delvey. Does not work anywhere else because, like, where are you going to go with that? Is she going to try to con the other panelists on Snatch Game? That's almost a bit too big brain. How are you supposed to like answer? Are you going to try to con the pit crew out of their clothes? They're already gone. It felt like, again, something that was hung upon a funny accent and maybe like a fun idea for a character. But the more you get into, okay, what are we bringing out here? The more, or should I say, the less there was to actually go off of.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she does the poor joke, this exact same poor joke twice, one in the workroom, one in actual Snatch Game, makes another one later, and then does have the one bribing thing. And that was sort of like the entire conceptualization of the character. And so to me, it was like very one note and fell flat, but there were others that were worse. So I understand why she ended up safe.
Yeah.
Speaking of others that were worse, let's close out with Nymphia.
Wait a minute. No, wait. Morphine was in the bottom. She wasn't safe.
Oh, that's what I mean. Yeah. But I mean, she to me felt like should have been the top of the safe.
Oh, so she did as well. I loved that Untucked when Zunami and Morphine, perhaps to convince themselves delusion, were like, "Oh, don't worry, only one of us is going in. We're not going to lip sync against each other."
Yeah.
Do you all think this is another like a possible Mirage scenario where people have thought that once they saw Mirage like downing a drink, they're like, "Oh, she doesn't know the words. We're gonna put her in the lip sync." That here they're like, "Oh, these two think that they'll never lip sync against each other." Well, nightmares here, ladies.
I mean, I don't know about you, Lon,
Reality
but
TV
I'm sure that was
production
part of
is
it.
the reality TV producers. They give us so much, but they are evil. I am convinced that they are some of the most evil people on the planet. So I can totally see that happening for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was going to be Zunami and Nymphia in the bottom. But I think that probably the main reason is they're not ready to let Nymphia go and they didn't want to risk it. That's probably, in my opinion, the main choice that they were making. And then they have this added benefit of having two close Judies go after each other. And oh my gosh, the lip sync was so good. I
Oh.
almost
know,
wanted
it was.
I wanted a double save here. So they, first of all, the song. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we haven't had the song yet. And
I feel like
with
we
the
very
Runway.
rarely do Whitney in the lip syncs.
Yeah, well, we did in the season 9 finale.
Well,
Yeah.
There was the
yeah.
Platypus remix.
I feel like
and
I feel like that's why I'm like so surprised that it hasn't happened, because I feel like I always just think about, like, when I think of Whitney and Drag Race, I think about that, and it's just such a big moment that I feel like Whitney's done all the time for some reason. My brain
exactly.
is just like, yeah, Whitney's everywhere, but no.
But yeah, I want to dance with somebody, and again with the dancing Runway, which we'll talk about in a sec. But to have Zunami and Morphine down in the bottom too, and like they're dancing with each other and they're interacting with each other, which is like heartbreaking.
It really was. It was definitely shades of a Raven and Jujubee going against each other in All Stars 1, where like you could legitimately feel how painful it was for them. And so those moments when they decide to dance together, when Zunami gives a rose that fell off of Morphine's outfit to Morphine and they kiss, like it had me legitimately feeling ironically enough, so emotional, baby, getting to watch this and like surely how much of a surprise this was for these two, but then also them kind of using this moment to be like, screw it, screw what the judges feel. We're gonna use this time to like have fun together.
I felt the same way. It really did give me like Hunger Games when Peeta and Katniss are like, we're just gonna both eat the berries, bitch. Like you gotta choose. So I liked it too. I feel like this is like what they wanted from Sugar and Spice lip syncing together, but the two of them are just so crazy that was never gonna they were never gonna give that. But yeah, I felt the love between these two, and it was I do feel like, I mean, if we're nitpicking about the performances of each, I do think that Zunami did a little bit too much of the let's do this together, girl, because you could tell that Morphine was trying to like have her own moments and have her own thing, which is why she won ultimately. So I think strategically, yes, it's okay to like interact. We love seeing it, but like if you're trying to stay, then you gotta step ahead a little bit. So
it's also tough because I'm trying to remember Zunami's dancing level. I mean, obviously no one's as bad as Q, but I think what may have helped is like if she didn't feel like she was as strong of a dancer, it's tough being given the song I want to dance with somebody. And I definitely got a sense of like Morphine had more moments where like she actually showed dancing skills, and you don't have to be that literal about things, but I do think that if I had to choose between the two, Morphine kind of embodied that vibe of the song, whereas like Zunami kind of just did a lot of that like drunk ant posing for a second, like strutting to the back of the runway and then strutting forward. And you can't one up the penguin slide from last week, but like wasn't necessarily doing that much. It was enjoyable enough, and I think making it a double save would have been totally fine in this moment. I don't think anyone bombed it bad enough that they should have definitely gone home. But if you had to pick one winner, I think they picked the right one.
Yeah.
I agree with that as well. And for me, it was like, yes, obviously Morphine had the splits. She had more of the traditional, like, technical dancing skills, but it was just the energy. Because when I think of this song, and whenever it plays, I'm in my like bedroom with my hairbrush, just singing by myself. And like, you're just living your best life with so much energy, and you're just so happy, and you're just sort of feeling that it doesn't even have to be like a technically good performance. You just have to bring the energy, because that song is so much energy. And not that Tsunami didn't, it just wasn't, I think, to the level that Morphine brought it. And so I agree. I think she probably should have won.
Yeah.
All right, let's quickly go through. We already talked about the lip syncs, but let's just touch on speaking of dancing, some of the runway looks. So shout out to @drag.looks on Instagram for the pictures. We're going to go through and just quickly give our brief thoughts on some of the runways. We're going to kick things off with Q doing the robot, or as Ru said, in the future, robots will dance like white people. Living for that. Not really living for the look, to be honest. I don't know what I'm looking at, and I kind of hate it. But like,
it looks fine, like she's giving Thorgy here.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
Very Thorgy.
Yeah, very the Twizzlers coming from the hair. I mean, look, I will admit at this point in the podcast that I am to fashion what Nymphia is to Snatch Game, and that I feel very much out of my element. Maybe I'll bring up a monkey puppet to tuck through the rest. I think it's fun. I mean, you know, if you're gonna commit, I mean, I'm glad that she got like the only feasible dance that she could do. I don't know if this was what do you think? Do you think this was like, okay, pick out of a list, queens? Do you think the queens came to them with this theme and were like, oh, I want to do the robot, I want to do these other dances?
This feel I'm not sure if it was that, but it does feel like there's a little bit more to the story here with this look, because it feels like a time, because we've heard from queens a lot of the time where we're like, oh, well, I did have a look for this particular runway, but something happened with production, or it didn't come, or something didn't work, and then I was forced to go with another one. So this because this does not give robot. It just gives Club Kid. It gives Thorgy Thor. I'm not really sure. It feels like she just put this on and just started behaving like a robot and like called it a day. So I'm not really sure what the.
I mean, look at her hands in the last frame. It's a good significance of like how she feels about the look. Like, what can you do? It's on my body.
I think it's tough also because Q has been seen thus far as like the runway excellence, you know, bringing like such top tier looks. So something that doesn't maybe necessarily mesh super well, or even if the outfit itself isn't bad, just fitting within the context of the prompt makes you kind of go, huh, a little bit. And I think that was definitely my reaction with Q.
For sure.
All right, let's talk about Salsa with Zunami, which again, I think wasn't bad. I think she executed really well on the runway, but it just wasn't enough to save her. I mean, it's just, that's so tough with such a bad snatch.
Yeah. I mean, crazy to say this because it does look like a wonderful dress, but it does give a little OTR, off the rack, as Michelle would say. Just a little too pedestrian. You have to always have like an extra zhuzh to your looks. Is it something that someone would wear to a salsa dance? Of course. Do you do this for Drag Race? Sure, but give me a little bit more spice with it. So
Yeah.
Definitely one of the less remarkable looks. And it's tough because, like, again, there's not a lot to go off with Salsa. I personally would have gone a bit more literal. I would have dressed up like Salsa. I don't know if they would have gone for it, but I think that's the brand, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe that's the only way you could kind of like zhuzh up a Salsa look.
Yeah. All right, Nymphia. Ooh, Nymphia up next. And I mean, I think this is also, you could also say, oh, well, they weren't ready to let Nymphia go. But also, I think there's an argument to be made that this runway saved her, because when she started doing her makeup with just the big white circle in the middle, I was like, what is happening? And then she comes out in this, I was like, oh my gosh, absolutely stunning.
Yeah, I mean, incredible. And look, it's always tough. Another sort of like wonky thing that gets thrown in terms of production is like some weeks the runway matters, some weeks it really doesn't. This week felt like it was an easy out for production to be like, Nymphia is giving us this. And I think unlike she, who had her rare misfire this week, Nymphia never misses, even in the weeks where she's basically purpled. This is just gorgeous in so many ways. I think just like the natural elements of it, that it looks like bark on a tree with obviously this kind of wreath circling around to almost kind of resemble a moon as well, with the face in the middle. Obviously, I'm not that sighted up on Japanese Buto to talk about sort of like the cultural circumstances behind it, but it just looks like absolutely mesmerizing. And I think probably the standout look from this entire bunch. Now, look, was she benefited from the fact that it's a very different style of dance compared to everyone else's? Totally, but she met the assignment and excelled.
I adore it. I can't get enough of it. Like, it's actually like, she's sickening. She actually really is sickening to me. Like, I get sick. Just be like, bitch. I don't know. Just the way that she's able to manipulate fabrics and textures and things. She needs to be doing this. I mean, I guess she is doing it professionally, but like, for like, I don't know. Someone needs to hire the bitch. It's just crazy. Like, you can't really see it from the pictures, but the shoes have a dress on them. Like, I'm like, what is going on? Like, it's just, I can't, I don't know how people do stuff like this. It'll always be one of like people that draw, people that sew. I don't understand it. I can't fathom it. So, and I one of the things that I love the most about her too is that, like, because she's from
Thailand.
Yeah. I love that she incorporates other Asian cultures. Like, she's like really just like celebrating the Asian diaspora, because I feel like we don't always have a lot of Asians on the show, maybe like 1 or 2 or 3 per season. And I feel like a lot of them are very, very into bringing forth their own culture, as they should be, as they 100% should be. Loved watching her sort of just like incorporate all of it, because it just reminds you just like how vast of a cultures that there are. So I loved it. And I'm, obviously I speak a little bit Japanese, so I'm like a little bit more biased with this particular look, but girl, everything.
I'll clarify, actually. Sorry, it was Taiwan.
Taiwanese, yeah.
Because I would say otherwise, if she could just participate on Drag Race Thailand if she was she was from Thailand.
Can you imagine? They'd be like, bitch, go back over there.
Well, and I think, she talks we've heard this before, but also in the workroom talk about how the Taiwanese government was the first to legalize gay marriage in the Asian countries. And so there is more of a rich life, and to be able to see her creativity and to take so many different elements from that and here tapping into the Japanese culture, that's also very cool. It's just, I'm really impressed with everything that she's brought to the runway.
Yeah, not the Snatch Game though.
No, not the Snatch Game.
That was we were sort of skipped over it, but like it was very, very, very bad.
It was just bad. It was so bad. And apparently, Morphine was at Roscoe's this week, and apparently said that the animal noises that she was making went on for even longer. And I think that that's part of why when Nymphia was like, "Oh, I thought I was here to give a talk," and Ru was like, "No," and just moved on. I think it was because like, we're over this. We're not doing this anymore.
But I kind of felt like if you had to do Jane Goodall, that's the direction you go in. Like I would have done the increasingly unhinged, or like her being very straight laced, but oh, the woman is actually a monkey. Where like she eats a banana with her feet. She's picking fleas out of her hair. Like that could have been a funny way to take it if you're forced to do Jane Goodall. I have no idea why Nymphia is putting herself in a box with the bananas. I feel like the read of like knock knock who's there banana was one of those very comedy comes from truth moments where for some reason she has really chosen to make this her brand Nana and has committed to making it every single time, which is wild. This is like if Monet did the sponges every single week she was on Drag Race.
I know.
Soak it up, bitch. Girl, soak
what up?
Soak what up?
That slap on the sweat on your forehead?
Yeah, we'll definitely get into the reads. Let's finish out the looks though by talking about Dawn. So Dawn has polka here. I mean, I don't know, Mon. Like it's cute. It's fine, I guess.
The satisfying part of it for me is just her hair and her face, you know. But it's fine. It's it's cool. Like it's cool.
She looks like a dog.
I
just can't help. I can't help but see ears, like little basset hound ears sagging down. That's all I see. I think it's fine. I like the flowers. The dress is fitting the assignment. Again, sort of underwhelming me in a way that she has been basically like the first week being the exception of like, okay, you're Willow Pill 2.0, and I don't want her necessarily feel like she's squeezed into that crystal method box necessarily, but I'm waiting to see something else pop out. I'm a little disappointed given again the Eastern European aspects of playing Jane that she didn't get the opportunity to do this as well.
Yeah, I agree. Sapphira's I was living for, including the read about her shoes.
Oh, well, I was going to say, do you think she lost out on the win because she referenced Drag U? Wasn't that the thing with like Ginger Minge referenced it during the music videos and Rue was not happy about it?
Yes, although Michelle was like in the critiques was like, I'm happy you brought up Drag U. So I was like, okay, are we accepting this part of our history now or are we still shunning this? I don't know.
No, I loved it. I loved the reference to Drag U, and I love that it was very much like giving HBCU energy as well. It was just like it was everything. I loved it. Very much Beyonce Homecoming.
I think she should have won. I think this was also something that really put her over the line for me. Where like it was creative, right? She was given cheerleader, and she isn't just shaking pom poms. Drag U majorette was what it was, and so she decides to be the pom pom. And I thought the color matching was great. Again, she's able to make these character shoes work in every aspect. I love her hair basically being a pom pom. And I will also say, because we got into a bit of like personal stuff with Nymphia this week. I mean, Sapphira's story about her dad is just,
I cried when I was watching the episode. I started bawling. I was like, so sad because like it's so tough.
And it's so tough. And also like not to make this too much about myself, but obviously like I have become a father in the past near 5 years, and like I watch a lot of father-son content now with a very different eye for a lot of reasons. And like, you know, listening to Sapphira start to talk about her dad, and you think it's going down this one path of like, well, he didn't approve of it, and I haven't talked to him since, but talk about like, you know, the vast support that he had for her up until his death. Like, it touched me and it inspires me. I try to get my son, you know, as involved with the idea of drag as possible. We do drag queen reading hours. Liana, when Asher was born, got me a drag queen book that we read to him ever so often. And so it's just like an incredible reminder of the support that parents could and should give to their children. It is tragic, and Sapphira is probably kicking herself every minute of her life for not picking up that phone in that moment and hearing the last words from her father. But if any upbringing she underwent informed the incredible person she is today, we are so grateful to him.
Yes. Yeah.
Next, let's talk about Plasma, who, if she wasn't weaponizing her BFA before, boy, she's out there tapping her way down the runway, responding to the judges' critiques. Both her and Sapphira had some clapbacks, which I loved. Aman, how'd you feel about her look here?
The look was fine. I think the best part about it was the way that she sold it, actually doing tap. So it was it was fun. Again, with Plasma, like as talented as she is, I do sometimes feel like it's just a little bit too on the nose. It's a little bit too manicured. I want you to sort of like just let loose just the touch.
Let loose.
But
let loose.
Talk about another theater kid who has that type of energy.
loose.
That's the thing to me is like, I think Plasma is arguably like the most successful theater queen besides Jinx that we've had on the show. But good God, does she represent that worst of theater kid energy so much, that Rachel Berry aspect. It's interesting because, you know, I interviewed a theater performer for the new Survivor cast who is like the exact opposite in so many ways. So when I watch Plasma and I watch my interview with him, it's just like night and day, where Plasma is very much that pick me, is very much that like everything is going to be about theater. But what she does is incredibly impressive. Is it just me as well? Because I'm also watching UK versus the world too. It feels like we've entered kind of an era of Drag Race where there is so much noise happening on the runway. Usually it feels like the queens are like silently processing and the judges are shouting things out at them. But we had the taps. We had Sapphira this week doing the Drag U stuff. I won't talk too much about, again, UK versus the world, but there's one contestant that has done a lot of ancillary noises on the runway to the judges' amusement. It just feels very different.
I don't know. Yeah. Go ahead, Liana.
Oh, well, I was going to say, I mean, I don't know if it's, I mean, there is some, I think, for the runway, but also like with just some more of the editing with the confessionals. Like I think of Megami's like shade to the judges' critiques last week. Like I think there's a few different elements where the editing is different, but it doesn't feel like aggressively so.
I had a random thought. Do you guys think that like whenever they have the guest judges, do you think that like RuPaul or whoever like preps them ahead of time to say, when we're done critiquing or deliberating, I'm going to say silence and you have to be quiet? Or do you think that RuPaul just expects everyone to know that that's how he's going to end the deliberation? Because sometimes I'm like, I don't know. I don't think Kira reacted any kind of like way this week, but sometimes I feel like some judges are like, oh, okay. Like, so I wonder if they're like prepped ahead of time.
Yeah, what's in the brief? Like you're going to be on Drag Race. This is what's expected to you. And like very key when RuPaul...
I mean, because they want them to do well, right? Like, yes, there might be a lot of attention given to like when Meghan Trainor wore a unicorn onesie or when Joel McHale gave a very polarizing performance. But by and large, they want the guest judges to be good. And so I would imagine there probably is some sort of producer or PR person, like as the guest judge is sitting in the makeup chair, running down all the things of like, you've got to say punny one-liners as the contestants are walking by. You know, you can try to push back against Michelle. Good luck. And when RuPaul says silence and interrupts the conversation, he's not being rude. He's just moving on to the next segment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know they feed them lines also, so I think they would get like a little list of puns that they can chime in with.
Also, can I just say, like, can we lock the door on Untucked from now on?
Oh, yeah. I'm so over it.
Like, it's got to be a contractual obligation, right? That's like, come on to Drag Race. You'll then get an opportunity to sit down 1 on, I guess, 9 with all of the girls and impart their wisdom.
Lady Gaga. Blame Lady Gaga. Because as amazing as she was, and she was amazing. I love the fact that she
had a notebook. She went through all the critiques.
Everything. She was one of the best guest judges they have ever had on that damn show. But her coming back there, man, like now everybody feels like they need to come back and like have this moment with the queens, and it's just like it's cute and it is and it's great, and there's a lot of very heartfelt moments, and I'm sure the queens love it, but sometimes I'm like, okay.
Well, especially when you have
want to see the fighting. Like, especially when the fight got interrupted last time. I was like, what?
Like, I know.
And this time to a certain extent.
Yeah, it was definitely decelerating in Untucked, where basically, again, for those that didn't watch, Plain Jane basically like called out the 3 safe people saying, oh, well, you should have done this. And then Q claps back, basically saying like, who are you to tell us this? And it calmed down a little bit. And then Kira Cedric walks in to say, sometimes you'll have bad days, but the important thing is to wake up the next day, which will be a good day.
Like, okay, thanks.
Thank you, Professor Cedric. I appreciate it.
I mean, I think probably the Madeline Kahn impression was like the best thing that she did. That was fantastic. Like if we had gotten that, nothing Untucked, perfect. Like perfect guess. Love that.
When do you think the deal was made to bring her on? Because correct me if I'm wrong, they did have Kevin Bacon send in a message around the Wig Loose stuff last season, right? So maybe they're like, hey, if you want my wife, she brought her son to a drag show when he was there. They're like, Okay, we'll get the closer. Why the hell not?
Sure. You can come, sure.
I forgot about that damn show. Oh my god.
Okay, well, let's talk about, we have 3 more looks. Morphine with her flamenco look, which, yeah, I enjoyed it. I
Sold
think
it
it worked
well.
well.
Mhm.
Yeah, she sold it well. Exactly. Worked for the runway and
Yeah.
for the lip sync. So great.
If
No notes.
Nymphia was uncharacteristic and didn't knock her look out of the park, like this would have saved her. I think. I
Yeah.
think it's really nice. Obviously, it's lip sync ready. I was ready to motherfucking lip sync.
Mhm.
So I was motherfucking ready, and it's perfectly Morphine's brand as well. Again, she's got that Miami spirit to her. She's been on an
Mhm.
interesting track, right? She was bottom 3 last week, bottom 2 this week. So I imagine now that Maya has kind of had her redemption, Morphine's next in line. And we do get a design challenge, because I don't think Morphine was terrible at the past couple
Mhm.
times.
Yeah, well, Maya was not so great at the design challenges. So I'm a little nervous for her next week. So this is her look, the 90s hip hop. So one thing that was a piece of tea that came from Morphine from the Roscoe's viewing was that I guess there were 6 looks that Maya did not end up getting from her stylist or from her designer. And so
Damn, not Morphine airing out her tea like that, Jay.
yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it kind of saves the way I feel about some of her looks a bit, because if this was, I mean, I don't hate this look, but it definitely, if you were choosing to do something, I don't think that this is what you would make with your like
90s.
puffy sleeves,
It
your
looks like
Seinfeld shirt.
it looks like if Ronald McDonald got oil splashed on him. I'm obsessed with it. Like the red and yellow and the red wick. It's all I can think about.
I'm not sure. Maybe I could be wrong. Like, look, I was a baby for most of the 90s. Did black hip hop artists have mullets? I feel like they didn't, but I could be wrong. Maybe there's 1 or 2.
I mean, they said that they loved the mullet. The initial colors and like the latex piece, I was like, okay, that's like very salt and pepper. I could see maybe something like that. I think, yeah, it was the
Mhm.
hair and the puffy sleeves that really I was just a bit confused about.
The puffy sleeves I did sort of get. We kind of moved on from the like tight leather of the 80s into, you know, these more like odd piratey looks
You
of
needed
the
more
90s.
baggy. You needed more like puff. You needed a bucket hat. You needed sunglasses. You could have, oh my god, you should have worn like those Air Force One heels. Like that's what you needed to be doing. This to me just I don't know what's going on here. I would have never guessed 90s until she said something. So you know, power to her. I just not for me.
She sold it well, but yeah, I think also like this may have been one of the looks she didn't have, so I'm a little like, oh well, that sucks. Our last queen is Plain Jane, who did Latin Ballroom, which then Michelle decides to mansplain to Plain Jane about Latin Ballroom, despite the fact that Plain Jane did Latin Ballroom for a significant show.
Hey, Michelle was on Strictly Come Dancing though, Liana.
True. You're not wrong. I think she just moves very effortlessly, and I think that this was really stunning. I mean, I can't really critique this much.
I like the asymmetry of the top. That really did it for me. The sort of like feathery look to it.
Yeah, I think that's very stunning. I don't know how she would have done more. I guess maybe Michelle wanted more in like the delivery of it, not the look, or more in the look. I don't know. I didn't really understand it, but we'll let the Latin Ballroom queens weigh in on that. Far for me to critique.
Both of you out there.
Yeah, all 3 of you out there. All right, great. So made it through the lip sync, the runway, the main challenge. I think the last thing that we have to touch on is the mini challenge, which is our reading challenge, because reading is what? Fundamental. Mike, as the comedy person here, what stood What stood out to you from the reading challenge?
Well, I'm glad Zunami had a win to go out on in a manner of speaking in winning the reading challenge. And I mean, I do think that Plasma, Where Were You on January 6th was the one thing to take away, which is interesting because apparently Plasma's grandfather is like a Republican politician. So it's like, I don't know if Zunami knew that or just made the general read of like, where was this white person on January 6th?
Yeah, I think it's like, yeah, her grandfather and her uncle or something like that are like very like right-wing politicians. So yeah, I don't, maybe that had come up in the workroom and then we just, we didn't get to see it. You mentioned this earlier, Mike, the knock knock joke, the banana knock knock joke that Dawn was doing about like, this is what it's like to talk to Nymphia. And I thought immediately flashback to the girl group challenge of like banana, fofana.
Fofana.
Yeah.
That's what happens when Megami isn't around too, right?
Right.
Nymphia's jokes. I did like, speaking of Nymphia though, she struggled a little bit, and maybe they were indicating again like her arc to coming out of her shell when she's like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. That's my time. I'm gonna give like 2 minutes back. I cede my time to RuPaul. I did like though the crack at Play Jane about the dandruff on the shoulder and the beard growing out. Like that was one of those. It wasn't completely in the Roxy Andrews like, okay, you're just being mean, not funny, but it ended up working, I think, well enough for Nymphia.
I feel like there were a bunch more Plain Jane reads that we didn't get to see, because I feel like every time a queen said Plain Jane, like, and it cut to her face, she was like, okay, here we go again. But we only got like maybe like 3 or 4 of them. So I feel like all the queens ripped her ass to shreds and we didn't see it. So I want the unedited footage, bitch.
Yeah, I also think this is another one that maybe Sapphira could have gotten as well. I did like, maybe one of the better Plain Jane lines of like, you're seated in the exit row because we are clear for your departure. And I also did really enjoy the Zunami being into astrology. She's a Cancer to the drag community.
Yeah, I think the other one that I really liked was Plasma about Sapphira, like you're just a Philly cheese mistake.
Yeah, that was funny.
That was funny. I thought that was cute. The Dawn read, or the read from Q about Dawn of like, your name should be Dusk because you look better in the dark. That's like canned and like cute, but it is cute. So
cute.
I can't really falter for that. And then
the knock knock joke, the banana with chocolate already, really good.
Yeah. What else?
I do feel like there was the joke about like Plain Jane studying for her COVID test and her being happy when it tested positive.
She passed.
It does feel a little like samey to me with, I think it was season 6. I don't know if it was Bianca or Darian Lake who said Adora got she took her SAT, she got ketchup on it. Like it does feel a little bit, maybe it's just the test idea. It felt a little bit, in the same family to me.
Yeah, we've definitely seen the like same pattern of some jokes be recycled. I think one of the ones that I don't know how it would have been recycled from the past, but this was Plain Jane's about Q's, where Q is apparently in an open relationship, and when couples see Q from across the bar, they decide to become monogamous. That's like really hyper specific with a lot of setup, but I thought it was still pretty funny.
It's interesting. There was one where I feel like they were running through a bunch of I think somebody was running through Plain Jane. It was like, you are poor, you're ugly, you're a dumb fuck. And I was like, I thought it's gonna be the typical like, everyone says you're ugly and you're untalented and you're an absolute horrible dancer, but they're wrong. You're not a horrible dancer. I thought we were going in that direction, so I'm glad we didn't at the last second.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else about this episode or the season, Mike, that you would like to talk about?
Ooh. Who is going to be Miss Congeniality?
Hard not to see Sapphira at this point.
But is it automatic? Like, it can't go to anyone in the finale? It could, I guess, but I don't think we've ever seen it happen.
So the other person I was thinking is maybe Zunami. It does feel like she has been able to have some connections with people, but to me, like the runaway winner would have been Sapphira, if that's an option.
Yeah. I could see Zunami.
Yeah, because it's voted on by the other queens. I just don't know if this is.
If it's Plain Jane, I will die.
I just don't know if it's a Big Brother situation, right? Where like, we found out for the longest time, we thought, it couldn't be anyone who's in the top 2, and then it was, and then a winner won it. So I don't know if it discounts if you're in the top 4, or if the queens themselves are like, well, Sapphira already has a chance at the crown, so we're going to give it to somebody else, a bit of self-policing. I mean, you talk about Plain Jane, they filmed the reunion and finale. I feel like they filmed it before the season aired, I think, unlike how they usually do it because of the strikes.
Wait, really? They already filmed the finale?
I'm gonna fact check myself on that.
Okay, can
real
you
quick.
look it up? Because I'm nervous. I don't want to get spoiled. So you can look it up for me.
Oh, great. Damn, please. I
Um,
will sully the waters.
Yeah. Because I mean, typically I just assumed that it was going to follow the usual pattern where we do the episodes per usual, and then they record the finale like in May or June or whenever we wrap up the
Why
season.
is it so
So
hard for this show not to get spoiled? Like, is it intentional? You know what I mean? Like what is going on? Because like for shit like the challenge, we know that shit's gonna happen, and it seems like production doesn't give a damn. They are fine with that shit happening. But for the most part, it feels like there is like some level of like we want things to be kept a secret from Drag Race, but every season it doesn't matter. You can go on YouTube and find elimination orders, and they're all accurate. I don't understand it. Like, why can't there just be a season where everyone just shuts the fuck up? Like now, All Stars, it's different because everybody knows those queens already, and when they start disappearing and they don't do a couple gigs for a summer or two, then you know, okay, they're on the damn show. But for these queens that are relatively plucked out of relative obscurity, because not everyone knows who they are yet, it feels like it should not be that hard for them to just be like, shh. But no, it gets leaked every season.
So I'm looking on, someone said on Reddit, and then there's a video on YouTube that said that for the first time since season 3, they filmed a reunion before the season aired.
Wow.
And they filmed the finale alongside the rest of the season.
Oh, well, I take back everything I said at the beginning then. Well, interesting. Okay, so, I think that if that's true, then I feel like it's one of those situations where the preconceived notions of the queens matter a lot, or like whatever production has decided, because it kind of gives a little bit of like, you know, when Trixie won, even though like she didn't deserve to win, but it was just the reputation that Trixie came in with. And so I'm wondering like how that's going to impact this season. But you know what? Whatever. I'm going to try not to think about it.
Well,
everything's fun and I don't know what's going to happen.
This also benefits though, like maybe not from miscongeniality, but it certainly does benefit from them filming multiple endings, right? We're like, you know what, we can put this in the can alongside the season. It doesn't necessarily matter anyway, because we'll just put out the person that will be the most palatable to the audience by the time the season actually airs.
Yeah, honestly, that's the thing. Yeah, they can benefit. I mean, depending on how they did it, if it's like a final four where they each do an individual song or they do.
Yeah,
Yes?
sorry. So now it all makes sense, because I do remember I saw a clip of a bunch of the girls on like an Instagram live where they had been talking about the reunion. They had said that like some things were already said at the reunion, and this was while the season was airing. So that indicates to me that they had filmed it ahead of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Then that's consistent. All right. Well, we'll see when we get there. Okay, great. Aman, anything else you want to mention?
No, I'm having fun. It's been a great season so far. I love the topsy-turviness of it all. And I'm just excited for an episode every week. I'm excited.
Yes. And next week we are going to get another design challenge, the Neo Goth look challenge. So very design heavy, which I'm not like super crazy about.
This really is the season 3 redux between filming the finale during the season and doing a bunch of design challenges.
Honestly. So we're going in for what, because even the doll challenge, I mean, yes, it was marketing, but it was still a design challenge. So it's just, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, thank you so much for coming on today, being our guest. We got the gang back together.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Jake O'Kane, for opening the doors for straight men to come back onto the Drag Race podcast. I mean, that's one reason, honestly, why I left it, is because I did want to give the platform and the space to voices from the LGBTQ plus community to speak about these things. So, you know, apologies if I ended up saying anything ignorant towards the issues in the community, but I love this show to death. I have since I've come into touch with it, and you all and Beth have done such a great job with it that I was happy to kind of like swing by again, much like Chad Michaels, and come by the old stomping grounds to get to talk about what has been such a fun season of reality television so far, and maybe float out a strategy that might be happening, if not this season, then the next. And if it does, I'm so sorry / you're welcome.
Well, where can people find you on social media, and let's see, how much time do we have? How many plugs you want to give?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give sort of the reality TV adjacent plugs, because I guess I'll go with maybe some of the more like gratuitous Drag Race terminology. I'm really fisting Survivor coverage right now.
Woo!
Just wrist
Oh my
deep
god. Oh
in-
boy. All right. Well, I hope you've lubed up plenty, but yeah.
Nope. Raw fingers.
Oh no.
Raw burger fingers.
Oh
Y'all seen
no.
that video of the Sibling Rivalry podcast when Bob tells Monet that fake story about having fisted someone with both his hands?
Yes.
And
Yes.
So yeah, the time we're talking, Survivor 46 is right around the corner. I had the great pleasure of getting to fly out to Fiji last year to actually interview these people in the flesh. It was an incredible time with what is a really weird but very fun cast. So if you haven't checked out any of my interviews, they're all up on Rob Has a Podcast right now in video form. I wrote about them for Parade. I did some other interviews as well that are coming out in the intervening days with Jeff Probst. Also got to be out there for the first few days. So once the premiere actually airs, I'll have plenty of more tea there as well. Liana, you and I might do our own like Roscoe's viewing party Q&A perhaps on the B&B that week. Speaking of the B&B, I get to podcast with this one the entire Survivor season, which I'm so excited for. Actually, to reveal a bit behind the curtain here, she and I are going to hop off recording this podcast and record the B&B for the Survivor 46 preseason. So we'll be back every week doing some fun and games and general shenanigans about Survivor. I'll be writing about it and interviewing contestants every week over on Parade.com. I'll be covering Amazing Race as well, as that'll premiere in a few weeks. I'm going to be on the Australian Survivor recap this week with Shannon. We're going to have a very fun time off of what has been similarly a very fun season of television. 2024 has gotten off to an incredible start from a TV perspective. Between Australian Survivor, this season of Drag Race, The Traitors, like, it's been very, very good so far. So I'm hoping Survivor continues that trend. Post-show recaps, the news has come out to this point that we are bringing that Plain Jane in for a landing. We are accessing the exit row. So we're spending the month of March kind of saying farewell to it with a bunch of send-off podcasts that I'm doing alongside Grace Leader. But you can check out anything and everything I'm doing, including apparent Drag Race theories that are read off on Drag Race podcasts at a Mike Bloom Type. And again, thank you so much for having me on. I hope people enjoy it in general.
Yes, of course. I think it's always interesting to get your perspective as such a veteran of the reality TV space and analyzing so many different shows.
Okay,
like,
I'm like 2 months older than Sapphira. I'm not that much of a veteran.
You old man being a father. So old. No, I mean, of course, it's always a pleasure to chat with you, Mike, and to get your Drag Race takes. You can find Beth at Augusta Wind 11, and then Aman, for you, is there anything else you have going on that you want to chit-chat?
Nope, I'm just here for Drag Race. You can follow me everywhere at Aman Adwin, and I'll be here.
Love this. All right. And you can find me on Twitter at Liana RHAP. As Mike mentioned, B&B is coming back. Masked Singer is also, for some reason, still on the air. So we're going to cover that. Puya and I are going to be back March 6th is the premiere. So 1 week after Survivor. And then we're going to be doing weekly coverage for Masked Singer. So thank you so much. If you can, leave your star ratings and reviews for us on iTunes, RHAPup.com/Drag Race. You can talk about how much you love. If you hated Mike, just don't mention it. Just don't be Plain Jane. Just don't mention it. Okay.
If you give me reads, they better be good reads. I'll say that.
Exactly. Yes. Okay. If you leave a negative review, you have to give a good read. That's funny. I don't want to encourage that. I take it back. And then, of course, a shout out to the whole RHAP team for all of their help behind the scenes. And so we'll talk to y'all next week. Bye.